I'm Chip Hanna, and this is the For You Leaders podcast featuring Kirk Dando, where we truly go beyond the veneer. You'll experience the raw and the real of leadership. You'll see your feet not miles away from the top. Remember Peter Lehrman? He's the CEO and founder of Axial. He's based out of New York and helping leaders monetize one of their most important assets, their companies. Axial helps companies plan their growth or their exit by connecting business owners to buyers, leaders, investors, and advisors. Oh yeah, and he's in the city that never sleeps. Kirk, how does he have a family in a famously unfamily-friendly city?
That's a great question. You know what? Peter truly cares about his family. He focuses on it, and he does a great job with it. I think if you asked him, he'd probably beat himself up a little bit more, but he really does care a tremendous amount about it. In fact, you know what? He's moved meetings with me around because he had to put family first. Let's pick up on part 2 of our interview with Peter, where we talk a little bit more about how he manages his business and a young family, so young that there's one on the way still. Let's jump in. One of the things that I want to talk to you a little bit about is just the importance of family. I know how important your family is to you. I know how important your kids, your wife, and as well as like you've talked about it and here, your parents and your siblings. So just talk a little bit about the balance of being a CEO of a high growth company, a leader where many people are dependent upon you, but maybe none more important than your family.
Yeah, it's a great part of the challenge, but obviously it's an incredible blessing to have a family, and you should never take it for granted. I think the challenge that you face really is, as the entrepreneur running the company, you have this responsibility for the entity in a unique way. You obviously have other executives who are deeply devoted to the business, individual employees, but you are responsible for the entity. And what that does is it really creates this mental commitment to the business that is very, very hard to turn off. And that can be so pervasive that it can, eliminate the ability for you to be really able to live in the moment with your family and spend time with your either your siblings or your parents or your children, your spouse. And that won't work. That's not fair to them, and that's not enough for them. And so you need to develop real mindfulness and real self-awareness. And you need to be able to catch yourself when the business is sort of repossessing your mind and push it to the side. And so I think the best way to do it is just to create a routine around it where, there's just a rule of thumb where you have a structure each week and a structure in the evening, a structure on the weekends where you just set a set of recurring boundaries, and you just, if the business creeps in on those boundaries, you just push it to the side. And if you don't do that, you really run the risk of losing your marriage, and you run the risk of losing a connection with your children and your family. And I think one way that I frankly have thought about it, to be just totally candid and really put everything out there, is kind of have to ask yourself if you could have the wildest, most successful version of your business that you possibly have imagined, whether it's revenues or profits or its value or its impact on the world. But in the act of doing that, you were certain to lose your family, lose your spouse, lose a connection to your children, lose their love or their admiration or anything. Or in the converse, if you could have your business melt down tomorrow and go to zero and fold, but you knew and you were totally certain that you would have your spouse and you would have true deep connections and authentic relationships with your children. If you force yourself to think about the outcome in one of those two very dire ways, you need to really ask yourself, what's the answer to what you want in one of those two dire ways? And based upon what you decide, then you can really decide, really where you're going to set the boundaries. I understand that entrepreneurs may decide that they really want to be with their businesses. I understand that. That's not the choice that I've made, but I do understand that. But I think you really need to ask yourself those questions, because that really is what can be at risk if you don't think intelligently and deliberately about how to balance time with your family versus making good on your commitments to the company.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think, the wisdom of kind of setting those extremes and really forcing yourself, because really you know the answer in your heart and in your mind. And that's where it goes back to those people that you're talking, surrounding yourself by, pressure testing that with them. I've seen too many times where people have had what is quote unquote success and failure at home. And so I think there's a lot of value that people can take from that. Same thing with what you were talking about, treating your business almost as if it's a not for profit. Is it a higher purpose, or is it just so, is it self-fulfilling? Because if it's self-fulfilling, you can run that game for a while, but there will be pressure. It will get difficult. You will get squeezed, and you won't surround yourself by a team that can ever help you grow, because they'll see through that. They'll see that you're for yourself versus for them. And so I think you've provided some great questions that not just young CEOs, but CEOs and leaders in general can place in front of them. And if they'll do that, I think that's a good pressure test for them. We're getting close to time on here, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, Peter. I've learned a lot from you. You and I have had some great conversations. The trust that you've had in me is not only allowed me to share my experiences, but it's allowed me to grow. A couple more quick questions as we get out of here. What is one of the things that you love about being a leader?
I think my favorite aspect of this is the capacity to influence the world in a way that I feel is very important and very meaningful. I decided to build Axial and be its leader because I believe what we do and what our mission is about. I think it has the ability to have a profound influence on the lives of many people in America, and I care a lot about that, and that means a lot to me. And I find that by being the CEO of this company, I have a huge lever that allows me to really maximize the chances of making that happen. And so I really, really enjoy that a lot. And I also really enjoy the opportunity to be with our customers. It really is a privilege to be with your customers when you're the CEO. You just have an unfair advantage versus everybody else in your organization. You have an unfair advantage when you're pitching prospects. You have an unfair advantage when you go out and meet with your customers. They are delighted that you're there. They welcome you. And those are some of the perks of the job. But for me, what's really most invigorating about the whole thing is I just feel like I have the maximum amount of influence on a mission that matters very deeply to me.
Well, Peter, I can tell you from my experience of 20 years and working with over 7,000 different leaders that you embody what I call that for you leader, somebody that really does have a higher purpose, somebody that thinks about others. And I think your answer there amplifies that for sure. So thank you for taking time for us today. No doubt people are going to have more questions from this. I hope the door is open to do this again with you. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. Anytime, Kirk. I do anything for you and everything that you've done for me and for this organization. There's no way to repay you. So come and be with us again, and I'm happy to bear all one more time.
Well, thank you very much. Hey, real quick, one quick question. I've got my daughter McKenna with me here today. Give me one great nugget that you would give her or any other young person that's up and coming.
It's funny, actually. We were just the other day in town hall here at Axial headquarters, sitting down with the whole company, and I was given just some quick advice in relation to our culture here at Axial and how we think about our culture. And there were two things that I said for people that are sort of getting started in the world, maybe getting ready for their first professional chapter. The thing you have to remember is you spend about 90% of your time as a professional with the people you work with and on your bed, your mattress when you sleep. And so you want to choose great people because you're going to spend a lot of time with them, and you want to always buy a really high quality mattress because you're spending about 90% of your time with the people you work with and the mattress that you sleep on. And if you make good decisions regarding the mattress you spend 40% of your life on, and 40%, 50% of your life with the people, and you really think carefully about how you spend that time, you really stack the odds in your favor. So, that's a quick rule of thumb. Just remember, you're spending 90% of your time in those two places, and so choose wisely.
What can you take away from my conversation with Peter today? Information without application is just useless. Part of the reason we go well beyond the veneer of leadership on this podcast is because we really want to give you real and practical solutions to everyday problems. So what is your one takeaway from my conversation with Peter today? Don't focus on all the things you're not doing. Focus on the one thing that you can do today and build on that. My hope is it is something that can make you a better leader at home. Experience tells me the world is starving for leadership in the home. If you'd like to learn more about the 20,000 CEOs, buyers, lenders, investors, and advisors that work with Axial, go to axial.net. Their main mission, their passion is to help business owners plan their growth or their exit. Once again, to learn more, go to Axial, AXIAL.net, axial.net. We'd love to know what you think. This is not meant to be for passive consumption. We really do care and want to shape this For You Leaders podcast for you. So please do take a moment and give us feedback. Share with us what you think about the questions. Would you like to see these to be shorter, longer? What other kind of interviews and insights would you like to learn that can help you grow as a leader, grow as an individual? And I'm going to ask you, please do go to foryouleaders.com. There you can let us know what you think. You can subscribe. And once again, you can learn a little bit more about Axial. Thank you for tuning in and listening to For You Leaders Podcast.